My name is Jeff Ben. I'm Tuleyome's Education Associate. If you don't know, Tuleyome is a conservation nonprofit based in Woodland, California. Our mission is to engage in advocacy and active stewardship with diverse communities to conserve, enhance, restore, and enjoy the lands in the region. The region that we focus on is the Northern Inner Coast Range and neighboring areas of the Central Valley. We particularly focus on the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument, which we helped get established and recently helped lead the effort to expand. In addition to our public lands advocacy work, we also do a variety of education programs, including K-12 field trips, a really great certified California naturalist course, lots of articles on natural history and policy in our newsletter, and of course, this monthly lecture series. We also do a range of adventures programs, including hikes, trail building days, wildflower tours, and our youth boot bank, which does free loans of boots to kids. If you'd like to learn more about any of those things, you can do so at our website, which is tuleyome.org. And so tonight we are lucky to have Ryan Henson as our speaker. Ryan is the Senior Policy Director for CalWild and is also a member of Tuleyome's Advisory Council. Ryan has spent his career advocating for protection of California's public lands at the state and federal levels. And in addition to working on the eel professionally, also has a longstanding personal connection, having grown up around the Mendocino National Forest and the Eel River. And so tonight he's going to be telling us all about the Eel River and some big things that are underway and may get underway here in the next few years. Relating to the eel. And so during the talk, we ask that you keep yourselves on mute, hang on to any questions until the end, at which point we'll have time for some Q&A.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. This PowerPoint was made exclusively for you folks. No one's ever seen it before, and my dogs are playing in the background. I apologize for the snarling you might hear. I have to say the PowerPoint isn't very aesthetically pleasing. It's just images and text. These have been very busy times here recently on the public lands defense front, and I haven't had time to make this thing beautiful. And then I'm easily distracted, so if we could save the questions and comments for the end, that'd be great. Hopefully I'll allow plenty of time for that. Again, though, this is a first ever, so I did not do a test run through, so I don't know how long it takes, but I'll do my very best. It looks like the PowerPoint is working. Thank goodness. Okay, well, great. So CalWild was founded in, well, again, Ryan Henson with CalWild. I'm the Senior Policy Director. I've been with CalWild for 31 years. I grew up in Mendocino County, at one point just 100 yards from the Eel River. I lived at Van Arsdale, where there is a big lumber mill that my dad worked at. So we were founded in 1976. Bob Schneider, who's on this Zoom, was one of our co-founders. And he was also one of the co-founders of Tuleyome. We work statewide, and we focus on the 45% of California that's public land, particularly the most threatened portion, which is the 35% managed by the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. We've been a very, very frequent partner with Tuleyome over the years, a very close working relationship. I work statewide from my home in Shasta County, just south of Redding. And the Mendocino National Forest is my favorite place on the planet. So um, Tuleyomy's work means a lot to me because I'm an intercoast range boy. So um, all right, well, if you could, oh, and then I'll talk about each picture. This is the eel downstream of the Mendocino National Forest, so it's kind of a cheat. If you can go to the next one, please. So uh, topics for tonight, we're going to talk about some basic facts about the Eel River watershed. Um, our Eel River project is about helping plan for the future of the eel if the two dams on the eel were to come out. So we're going to talk about the background on the dams and diversions on the eel, and then the purposes and desired outcomes of CalWild's Eel River project, or ERP, as I call it. Okay, if you can go on to the next one. Yeah, so the Eel River, this is the Eel River downstream, and you can see the old railroad there that's proposed to be the Great Redwood Trail at some point in the future. So the main branch of the eel originates in the Mendocino National Forest, again, my favorite place on earth, and on a place called Bald Mountain, and it runs through 196 miles from there to the ocean. It's the third largest watershed entirely in California, and it drains 3,684 square miles in Mendocino, and these counties are listed by the amount of the Eel River watershed in each. So the Mendocino, Humboldt, Trinity, Lake, Glenn, and Colusa counties. Okay, could you go on to the next one? And this is the Middle Fork Eel River. The Eel River watershed consists of the main eel, which is the focus of our Eel River project, and then the South Fork eel, the Middle Fork eel, and the North Fork eel. If you can go to the next one. And again, we're a public lands group, and so we've always focused on the public lands in the watershed. And those include by size, the Mendocino National Forest, which is where the main stem of the eel comes from, and the middle fork of the eel. And then the Six Rivers National Forest, which is where the North Fork of the eel comes from. The Bureau of Land Management Arcata Field Office, which is, oh, and the green is U.S. Forest Service. The yellow is Bureau of Land Management. The orange is the Round Valley Indian Reservation, another place I grew up, right next to the reservation. There was a mill there too that my dad worked at. And then in dark blue, Humboldt Redwood State Park, which has the main stem of the Eel River flowing right through it. If you can go to the next one. Oh, and the Arcata BLM is where the South Fork of the Eel comes from. So some of the special protected places in the Eel River watershed are the Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument, which is in more than one watershed, but it's definitely a big chunk of it is in the Eel. Humboldt Redwood State Park, which I mentioned, and then several wilderness areas that Bob Schneider and I played a big role in getting established or expanded. So the Mount Lassick Wilderness, Sanhedrin Wilderness, the Snow Mountain Wilderness, and the South Fork Eel Wilderness, the North Fork Eel River Wilderness, which is actually technically only called the North Fork Wilderness, but what a ridiculously generic name. So I always call it the North Fork Eel River Wilderness. And actually, Senator Padilla, as part of one of his bills, we're going to rename the wilderness to be the North Fork Eel River Wilderness. Oh, and Congressman Jared Huffman, it's his bill too. And then my really, really favorite place on the planet, the Yoloboli Middle Eel Wilderness, and then the Yuki Wilderness, which is what's pictured here. Okay, if you can go to the next one. Wild and Scenic River designation is the most protective designation for rivers under federal and state law. And the Eel River and all of its forks, I'm sorry, the undammed portion of the Eel River and all of its forks were made wild and scenic rivers by the state in the 1970s, and then by the feds in 1981. And what wild and scenic river status means for the eel is that it could never be dammed again, and nor can large diversions be created. And that's important because the eel was threatened particularly hard in the 50s and 60s by brand new dams that would have flooded Round Valley, where the Indian reservation is. If you can go to the next one. The Eel River supports Chinook salmon, coho salmon, which is what's pictured here, steelhead trout. There's a lot to say on steelhead trout, but I won't go into that more. A lot of the eel is extremely important for steelhead. Let's just put it that way. Coastal cutthroat trout, green sturgeon, and Pacific lamprey. Those are the more threatened fish that's supported in the eel. The Eel River once had the third largest fishery in California after the Klamath and the Sacramento River systems. If you can go to the next one. The eel has the highest sediment yield of any river of comparable, of any watershed of comparable size in the U.S., excluding those influenced by volcanoes and glaciers. And technically, the Colorado River would have more sediment, but the dams trap that sediment. So uh, even more than the Mississippi, the eel carries just tons of sediment. And it's largely, it's not only due to human impacts, but also to its incredible geology that I'm sure Bob Schneider would love to tell us about. If you can go to the next one. The watershed is home to several tribal nations. Now, these are not their reservation names, but rather the tribal nations. And each of these has federally recognized and state recognized tribes associated with them. So the Caddo, the Lassic, Pomo, Sinkyo, Wailaki, Wiyot, and Yuki. I grew up in Yuki country myself. If you can go to the next one. Two dams were built on the Eel River in 1906. Scott Dam, which is what's pictured here, that creates Lake Pillsbury, and then Cape Horn Dam and that's in Lake County, and then Cape Horn Dam in Mendocino County downstream. And Cape Horn Dam facilitates a diversion to the Russian River. Oh, and I should say that the dams were built for the purpose of transferring water to Sonoma County, basically. Um, and later were used to make electricity. But primarily it was the dams were built by, and actually an outfit called the Snow Mountain Water Company, which is kind of interesting. And it was to sell the water. So if you can go to the next one. Dams and other disturbances in the watershed caused fish populations to plummet over time. The eel once supported a bunch of canneries, believe it or not, commercial canneries for salmon and other species. But we really worked the watershed over with development, with logging, and of course the dams. And so fish populations have plummeted over time. This is the old railroad that was punched in along the Eel. It was the most expensive railroad to maintain per mile in the United States because of its violent geology. This is also the proposed Great Redwood Trail, the old railroad. So if you can go to the next one. Now, for the last few decades, fish advocates have been fighting to restore the eel. And that has helped get us to the point to where we are today, talking about what's going to happen to the dams. So their goal from the beginning has been to get rid of the two dams. They assert that there's or estimate that there's 288 miles of historic fish habitat above the two dams. They argue that the diversion is killing the eel, and they want to greatly decrease the diversion to the Russian River. They want to reduce downstream water use. Most notably, they've been fighting the big cannabis farms downstream that want to take out more water. They have been trying to reduce logging impacts for a very long time. The eel has suffered pretty catastrophically from logging, and in fact, the railroad was punched in just to move logs, basically. So And then a more recent effort on the part of Friends of the Eel River has been to convert the North Coast Railroad bed into the Great Redwood Trail. If you could go on to the next one. Pacific Gas and Electric Company, my power company, owns the two dams. And what what got us engaged here is that they have announced plans to remove the two dams. And people, if you can go to the, oh, and this is Scott Dam here, that, and backing up behind it is Lake Pillsbury. So land and cabin owners at Lake Pillsbury, Lake County officials, and some of the Russian River water users are really outraged at PG&E, and are fighting the dam removal really, really hard. Um, you've already seen the fish advocates are pushing for that, but it doesn't mean that's in any kind of consensus. It's a very removing the dams is a very contentious issue. If you can go to the next one. These are some of the players involved. You've got tribes such as the Round Valley Indian Reservation, the Potter Valley tribe, which is part of the Pomo Nation, and several others. You've got the Lake Pillsbury Alliance, which represents the cabin owners and landowners at Lake Pillsbury who don't want the dam removed. Lake County, which has a history of getting kicked around and ignored when it comes to water. When you think about it, every reservoir in Lake County, the water goes to another county. So Lake County is used to getting its water stolen, and is tired of it, frankly. And also they feel like they never get listened to. And then, of course, you got the fish advocates, Cal Trout and Friends of the Eel River. And then the Sonoma County Water Agency, as we know, in California, water flows not downhill, but toward money. And so Santa Rosa has been the big power broker in the region, so water kind of flows towards Santa Rosa. So um, the issues that are dominating the dam removal debate are the future of the diversion to Sonoma County, um, who should own PG&E's property that's underneath Lake Pillsbury and around the Eel River between the two dams. So who should own that land? That's another area of contention. The mechanics of removing the dams, that's a big argument. And then how to best restore the eel and its once massive fish populations if the dams were to be removed. So these are all the big topics of contention. If you can go to the next one. CalWild did not get involved in the Eel River future debate. We had no intention of getting involved. And then Congressman Mike Thompson, who's pictured here, riding with Tuleyome and CalWild on the Snow Mountain Wilderness, he texted me and said, "You got to help Lake County." And I said, "With what? And who is this?" And so it ended up being Mike Thompson, and he wanted us to help Lake County deal with this issue of the proposed dam removal. If you can go to the next one. The congressman and then the U.S. Forest Service asked us at CalWild to work with people to a good question in chat, and I'll address that at the end. Congressman Thompson and the staff of the Mendocino National Forest asked us to work with people to develop a vision regarding the 5 topics that aren't being adequately covered by others. Okay, so as people argue about the diversion to Sonoma County, as people argue about whether or not the dams ought to come out, they ask us to work with people to develop a vision for the things that people aren't working on. So the future of recreation above the 2 dams, that's a big topic that no one was discussing. Fire management and fire resilience as it specifically relates to dam removal. That's something else that wasn't being discussed. Terrestrial restoration. We're talking about restoring the Eel River, but what about the land around it? Terrestrial as opposed to aquatic restoration. And economic opportunities for Lake County. Lake County derives tax revenues, derives revenues from recreation at Lake Pillsbury. What might replace that? What could we do to help Lake County benefit if the dams were to come out? By the way, some of the folks on the fisheries side get upset when we say if the dams come out because they view it as inevitable. But we agreed and promised Lake County, Congressman Thompson, and the Forest Service that we'd always say if. So I'm going to continue that here tonight, and don't get mad at me. I'm just doing my job. And then tribal cultural concerns. Now, you should know that tribal cultural concerns are in all of these topics. Okay. So all 5 topics have tribal cultural concerns, and it's a topic unto itself. Okay. So those are the 5 things. If you can go on to the next one. Oh, and this is a tribal tour we did of Lake Pillsbury there. So we got our first ever, again, we've been around since 1976, but we'd never gotten government money before. And we got funding from the California Coastal Conservancy to launch a series of collaborative discussions with people from all walks to talk about these 5 topics I just shared with you. If you can go to the next one. So over the last 17 months, our collaborative has consisted of 109 individual interviews with people from all walks, opponents of dam removal, proponents of Eel River restoration and dam removal, Lake County tax people, the Rotary Club, all sorts of, well, I'll talk about tribes in a second. We also had 3 well-attended in-person all-day workshops, and then we had 2 tribal-only workshops where it was just tribes talking to each other about the eel. So if you can go on to the next one. And then here are the ideas that have been arising from our workshops and our interviews. If you can go to the next one, please. So right now, Lake Pillsbury is used during wildfires as a place where helicopters can dip giant buckets into the water to draw water, okay? And one of the ideas that's come out of our workshops is the development of an alternative water source for the helicopters, okay, such as a pond. And it would have to be a pond with sufficient clearance around it to allow big helicopters to come in. So if you could go to the next one. Another aspect of enhancing fire resilience folks have been talking about is to improve emergency communications. Right now, those of you who've been there know that there's no cell service at all. And now, if you get up on Hall Mountain here, you can get cell service, but that's kind of a long drive from the reservoir. There is a landline going underneath the reservoir right now, AT&T landline. AT&T has announced that they're going to take that landline away. And so a vision idea folks have had is to get cell service in here. And the reason I have a picture of Hall Mountain is the old Lookout Foundation here could serve as a now after the Forest Service, of course, does all environmental reviews, it could serve as a place where an antenna, not a giant one, but a small antenna could be set, such as the National Park Service does on Mount Lassen every summer. They drop one in by helicopter. If you can go to the next one. Also on fire resilience, there's a great desire to increase the pace and scale of good fire. I put that in quotes because what that means basically in our terms is using fire as a management tool to restore the land. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that messing up the fire cycle has been one of the worst things we've ever done in this state ecologically. We've worked hard to put all the fires out, and what we've done is we've made them worse. We made them catastrophic. A lot of the smaller fires would have been very beneficial. And native people, indigenous people, have been using fire as a management tool for thousands of years. This is a photo here of a cultural burn where tribal members are doing a burn in the Mendocino National Forest. And so there is a wonderful collaborative that Bob Schneider's a big part of called Firescape Mendocino. They're looking at changing the way fire is done on the entire national forest. And we definitely want our vision to dovetail with Firescape Mendocino's effort to get science-based fire management on the Mendocino National Forest. There's for just one example of what messing up the fire cycles meant is that the deer population has been going down for decades because we messed up the fire cycle. Okay, if you can go on to the next one. Another idea people have had is to put in fire cameras and other early warning technologies. This, by the way, is not a picture of the Mendocino National Forest, but it is a picture of a fire camera. So that's one of the things that people. Oh, and I neglected to say, this would be a request of PG&E that PG&E write a fire management plan in collaboration with the Mendocino National Forest. And these would all be elements of that fire management plan. The replacement water source, fire cameras, better emergency communications. All those things would be elements of a fire management plan that we want PG&E to pay for. If you can go to the next one. Something that's super important is that if the dams are removed, there's a really high risk that they'll just become non-native weeds, like Medusa head pictured here. I'm sorry, cheatgrass. This is cheatgrass here. Either way, it's bad, 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 bad stuff. And so, and highly flammable. And so not only is it a big ecological issue to try to suppress these terrible invasive weeds from Portugal, I think, but also to deal with them as a fire management issue on the reservoirs if they get drained. Okay, go to the next one, please. Another thing is there's a fire station near Lake Pillsbury called Soda Creek Fire Station. So increasing the water storage there is an idea people have come up with. And then also there are various springs where the Forest Service and other firefighters draw water during fires and hardening those so that they don't cause erosion, damage to the streams, things like that. And then trucks can come in and get the water. Another thing is to improve the two best existing routes in and out of Lake Pillsbury for emergency evacuations. This is where the road looks good, but often the two roads are in really terrible shape, really notoriously bad shape. Which is true of the Mendocino National Forest road system in general. But but this is the most popular part of the forest. It's where the most of the private lands are that have people living on them, and so it's important that we have better emergency ingress and egress. Could you go to the next one, please? As I said, people live at the lake, and so reducing fuels, encroaching shrubs and trees, things like that around homes is very important. I know that in a high wind, it almost doesn't matter that everything's just going to get destroyed, like we saw in the town of Paradise. But it reducing fuels around these homes is a very important thing to do with Lake Pillsbury. If you can go to the next one. Okay, so that was fire, and then now we're going to talk about recreation enhancement. So, like how we wanted PG&E to pay for a fire management plan with the Mendocino National Forest, we also want them to work on a recreation management plan with the Mendocino National Forest and help its implementation. This is a picture of the Snow Mountain Wilderness Trailhead. If you can go to and then important elements of this recreation plan include, so if you can go to the next one. Improvement. Now, some of these demands of PG&E are repeated in different sections, and that's okay because they're that important. So improvements to the two most popular ways in and out, that's important. Um, if you can go to that, okay. And then trail development and maintenance vision followed by implementation. Now, trails are really important here because, you know, there are no trails accessing the Eel River above the dams except one, and that's the one shown here, the Bloody Rock Trail. Um, so getting trail access to the river is super important. And while there's a lot of trails in the Snow Mountain Wilderness, there are no trails linking those to what's now Lake Pillsbury. Okay. So trails around Lake Pillsbury, what's now Lake Pillsbury, and trails connecting those to Snow Mountain are some of the things that are desired. Another real popular idea that has been raised by tribes is to restore the ancient trails that ran along the Eel River before the dams were put in and all the National Forest roads. By the way, the Bloody Rock Trail here is the only remaining piece of that ancient trail on the Eel River in the Mendocino National Forest. If you can go to the next one. Um, what's going to happen to the campgrounds if the reservoirs go away? We need to the recreation plan should consider the new and existing car camping opportunities. Uh, and Yeah, so I guess I don't need to explain that any further, but Lake Pillsbury is the most popular place to camp in the Mendocino National Forest. And right now, most of the campgrounds are right on the shore of the reservoir. So yeah, that's kind of a problem. So if you can go to the next one. Also, as I said, there are no formal access points to the Eel River, which is absurd. And so putting in access points for the eel is very important so that people can enjoy the river. If you can go to the next one. Also, the eel between the dams and below the dams is very popular for whitewater boating, but there are no formal boat launching sites. Okay, so putting some in, which could also, of course, be river access points, like I just talked about. Um, and so that's something that people are talking about. If you can go to the next one. Um, and then also, uh, this replacement water source for the helicopters, making sure that they can also serve a recreation function is really important, like swimming and fishing, things like that. That's another idea that people have, is that not only can they be for emergency use, but also for enjoyment. If you can go to the next one. Oops. Yeah, and then also there's a desire for interpretive facilities. This is not the Mendocino National Forest, by the way. It's just a example of an interpretive panel. So you know, there's a desire for these around to talk about the history of the area, efforts at restoration, all those things. To have interpretive facilities that can educate visitors. If you can go to the next one. Now, there's a historic airstrip, dirt airstrip, next to Lake Pillsbury. It was developed during the Second World War as a backup place to land if airstrips in the Bay Area were fogged in. So bombers would land and other aircraft would land at the Gravelly Valley airstrip to and then they'd camp and then they'd fly down to their proper base after the fog cleared. This is one of several such backup sites for the Bay Area, for the Bay Area airports. And so in the 1960s, I think it was, this became the first what the Forest Service calls forward attack base ever in the United States. So this was where the first place where basically bombers would take off to drop fire retardant on fires, and it was from this very airstrip. So um, people right now fly in their private planes to camp, and there's a desire to make that more of a formal thing. Um, and so, with like parking places for your plane and things like that. So, and this isn't something just, like rich people are doing. This is just any owner of recreational aircraft who has the guts to land at Gravelly Valley. This would be a great opportunity for them to come in and camp. Um, and it's also a great place for us to interpret both the World War II and the firefighting heritage of the area. If you can go to the next one. Um, so we talked earlier about ensuring that the invasive plants don't dominate the former reservoirs. Another very important thing is to develop and maintain a seed bank for restoration at the former reservoirs. This is a Forest Service person collecting seeds. If you can go to the next one. Um, Another very important thing is that if the dams go away, we're going to have a big mud bog that maybe people would enjoy ripping around in their dirt bike and stuff. We can't have that happening. And so preventing illegal OHV use on the former reservoirs will be something that's very important. A demand that people, including OHV people, have identified as a very important need. Can you go to the next one? Um, I don't know how many of you have seen them there, but there's over 130 Tule elk at Gravelly Valley, and they get down to visit with the Tule elk in the Cache Creek watershed, and they likewise go to the northwest to the visit with the Tule elk in the appropriately named Elk Creek watershed in Mendocino County. And so these are traveling elk that love to hang out at Lake Pillsbury, and they're going to need a water source too. And one idea is that the big pond that helicopters can use for firefighting, that we could have tules growing there, which is one of the favorite food sources of the Tule elk. A tule is like a giant swamp reed. Um, uh, that's what that word means. You might have heard the term Tule fog and things like that. It was a very common plant in the Central Valley before the wetlands got drained, and grows on the edge of Lake Pillsbury. And so the elk are still going to need water, and they're going to need tules to eat. So that's something we need to look at. If you can go to the next one. Um, a big part of terrestrial restoration is, again, the need for good fire. Using fire as a management tool. If we don't use fire as a management tool, we're going to have nothing but catastrophic, deadly fires that kill everything. And so, thanks to Firescape Mendocino and tribes, uh, the Mendocino is trying to move in the Mendocino National Forest, the U.S. Forest Service is trying to move in this direction. Can you go to the next one? Uh, Maybe Bob will laugh at this, but this is the Bear Creek crossing. There are two streams that have no bridges where people need. These are tributaries of the Eel that flow into Lake Pillsbury, and people get stuck in them all the time. And if the dams are removed, they'll become they'll become salmon and steelhead spawning habitat. And so Bob Schneider, sweetie, please. Uh, Bob Schneider has proposed that we have bridges built by PG&E on them, so that here's a car that got stuck, and then people enjoyed shooting at it afterwards, it seems. So yeah, and there's going to have to be a lot of work done to make that estimated 288 miles of stream that the salmon and steelhead used to be in. It's going to take a lot of work to get the fish up there. We got to work on culverts. We got to do all sorts of stuff. So if you could go to the next one. And then, as I said, tribal cultural issues suffuse all the other issues that are being discussed, and it's an issue of its own. And so, from the two tribal workshops and our two everybody workshops that also had tribal participation, here are some of the ideas that have come out. So, PG&E should establish and support a multi-tribal advisory or governing body to help with the restoration. And these uh, these are just two of the logos of the tribes, the 7 tribes involved, and the bottom one is Round Valley, which a lot of folks don't realize it's actually 7 tribes at Round Valley, so they're called the United Tribes of Round Valley. So you can't really. That's why when you say Round Valley Indian tribes, it's always plural. Okay. And then the Habamoto of Upper Lake is part of the Pomo Nation. If you can go to the next one. And then again, good fire. There's a renaissance right now in tribes making cultural burns happen. So again, for thousands of years, they used fire as a management tool. Tribes are getting back out there on the ground and doing good fires again, teaching us how to do it. Um, and they want to keep that happening and increase the pace and scale of it in the 215,000 acres of the Mendocino National Forest above the 2 dams. I neglected to say something, and that is that both the Forest Service and Congressman Thompson really wanted us to not just focus on the 2 dams and what's underneath them, but rather on the entirety of the 215,000 acres of the million-acre Mendocino National Forest that are above the 2 dams. So focus holistically on the whole landscape, not just what's under Lake Pillsbury, which is what most folks argue about. Okay, can you go to the next one? Another thing is repeatedly tribes have identified a desire to restore the ancient trails on the Eel River. Of course, this would only be done after, the Forest Service goes through environmental review and everything. And the reason I show the Bloody Rock Trail is it's the only remaining piece of those ancient trails right now. This and something called the Cold Creek Trail, which actually connects the Eel River watershed to the Central Valley. That trail still exists. So if you can go to the next one. Um, another just basic desire is for PG&E and the Forest Service to support the identification and protection of cultural resources, landscapes, and individual sites. You should know that nowadays, cultural sites aren't about stones and bones, quote unquote, but instead it's all about holistic landscapes, ways of life, ways of being. Sure, stones and bones are important, but it's about far more than that. So helping tribes identify and protect such resources should be a key part of what PG&E should pay for. If you can go to the next one. Also, so Gravelly Valley is the valley that Lake Pillsbury flooded about half of when the dam when Scott Dam was put in. This is the unflooded part, and there you can see a little vernal pool. And so there is a really strong desire to use Gravelly Valley as a hub for maintaining and reclaiming cultural traditions. Okay, um, like cultural burning and gathering of materials, things like that. Can you go to the next one? Okay, and then an overarching desire from everyone is to change the conservation easement that PG&E has with the Mendocino Land Trust. And what that is um, all of PG&E's property between the 2 dams and underneath Lake Pillsbury it's all covered by a conservation easement, and that's normally a good thing. Conservation easements are used to prevent development. Bear Valley, the famous Bear Valley that many of you have probably visited. We saw a picture of earlier on Jeff's slide. It is covered by a conservation easement, and thank God for it. Okay, but the PG&E one, ironically, could really impede restoration. The campgrounds are all along the edge of the lake. Let's say we had to move one, that would be prohibited by the conservation easement. In fact, a lot of really unquestionably good things would be prevented by the conservation easement. So there's a desire by pretty much everyone to get PG&E to renegotiate that, and it's held by a nonprofit called the Mendocino Land Trust. If you can go to the next one. So what are the next steps for our Eel River visioning process? We're going to publish the vision in July of, as in next month. And we're going to share it with PG&E and the U.S. Forest Service and everyone who's been involved in our collaboration. And CalWild's goal is to make sure that all these items on the wish list happen. Okay. Now that's going to take years. We're going to start by demanding it of PG&E, but PG&E is going to probably try to spend as little money on as possible on dam removal, and that's a big problem. And so what we don't get out of PG&E, we're going to be begging from Congress. People like Mike Thompson, he's definitely invested himself in this effort. So hopefully he will help get money in the years to come to meet the shopping list that folks have come up with. And this is going to take many years of begging, borrowing, and stealing to get the resources to make this wish list come true. But we're committed to that. I know I personally am. I'm an Eel River boy through and through. So if you can go to the next one, which I think is just questions. Yeah. So, all right, we're at the point for questions. And the first one is, can I explain sediment yield? Bob could probably explain it better, but basically, the sediment can be stuff like mud or rock or whatever that's in the water, and scientists can measure the amount of sediment in each stream, and the Eel River carries more of that mud and rock and whatnot per square. I don't know whatever the unit of measure is, Bob, but carries more per square foot or whatever of any stream of it, that more than any stream of its size in the United States, which is just a fancy way to say it carries a lot of mud and rock. And a shocking amount of mud and rock, which begs the question: why was it such a great fishery? Well, the fish evolved for that, which is truly extraordinary. So, so that was one question. What other questions or comments do we have?
All right, so folks have questions. You can either put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and relay them verbally. So I've got one in the chat here from Cowshaw.
What are some good sources of science-based info on? Yeah, that's a good question. There is a lot of stuff online from fish biologists. There's a great paper about how um, above the dams, the rainbow trout still have the steelhead genetics that existed before the dams were put in. Um, Basically, it's like the steelhead are waiting for the dams to go away, and they'll start going back to the ocean right away. They're just trapped there behind the dams. Um, the- it's dam removal is something people are still figuring out. There really haven't been many of them. And the Klamath is still a work in progress, which is ginormous compared to this, obviously. And that's three very large dams. Um, and so it's kind of a work in progress. I wish I had an easy answer for you. One wonderful idea that I didn't put in here because it's still speculative is Congressman Thompson wants UC Davis to adopt this project as a long-term study that we can all learn from, and maybe even establish a field school at Gravelly Valley or something, because this is cutting edge stuff, and there's going to be, um, yeah, how much? Oh, well, let me finish this thought, and then, because this is going to be, learning while doing. How much money will it cost PG&E to remove the dams? They've given that estimate, and I can't recall. Um, and it depends on how they do it. If they do it super on the cheap, let's say just poke a hole in both dams and leave it at that, which would make a lot of people upset. They want something a little more than that. Then that would be one price. If the dams are totally removed completely, that would be a whole other cost. One idea too, our wish list. We don't know yet. We wanted the ideas from people, and we didn't. Yeah, we aren't. We haven't really priced them out. A lot of them are already happening, like the effort to get good fire back in. Ken?
Oh yeah, thanks. Great talk. I've learned a lot from that. Um, I grew up near the mouth of the Eel, and I was just kind of
Oh,
curious what your, kind of open-ended question. What do you think about some of the downstream effects of some of these projects or some of these ideas?
well, fish advocates say that this is going to benefit the entire Eel River system, um, and that over time, um, they hope that it'll help prevent the what looked like the inevitable extinction of a lot of the fish rods on the eel. Uh, One of the problems way downstream on the eel is how it gets super shallow and dries up there at Ferndale and whatnot, and they feel that, definitely reducing the amount shipped off to Sonoma County would help that big time. That under all scenarios, the amount sent to to Sonoma County is going to decrease pretty massively. And even the fish advocates are okay with some being skimmed off um, through a fashion that's to be determined. But it would be during high water, and not anything compared. Oh, and not at all in the summer, and not anything compared to what is happening now or has been happening for the last few years. Um, yeah, we have a question too about Bloody Rock, a site very near and dear to my heart, and Skeleton Glade across the river there. Um, yeah, the Yuki people suffered a terrible massacre at Bloody Rock, and there's a question of how would they like to memorialize that? Well, the Forest Service asked tribes what they would like to do, and there were three different schools of thought, so there was no consensus. Some wanted a memorial built. Others did not. They don't want to draw anyone's attention to the sites. And then a third school was more like, what's Bloody Rock? Sadly, Bloody Rock often gets confused with Bloody Island, which is a whole other massacre. of a different tribe, the Pomo. And so, yeah, there's no consensus on what to do, and without a consensus, the Forest Service won't do anything. That's for sure. But I always pause on the Bloody Rock Trail to say a prayer for what happened. Okay, yeah. Oh, the seismic dangers. Yeah, really good question. So, the Eel River watershed is extremely seismically active, and I guess they didn't know it at the time, but Scott Dam is built in the middle of a fault. And when you're flying over it, you sure can't see it. You can really see the fault going right underneath the dam. Um, and so, and I understand that there's a gigantic boulder that's on one of the shoulders, the south shoulder of the dam that they fear it has a weird name, clinker. I don't, maybe that's a geologic term, Bob, but there's a concern that in an earthquake that gigantic boulder could move and there could be a catastrophic failure of the dam, which is why PG&E won't fill the dam to its limit anymore. They're afraid of a catastrophic failure that could literally kill a lot of people. And actually, that's one of the reasons they're backing out of the dams is that of the seismic dangers. Um, um, oh, some specific places to visit on the Mendocino National Forest. Well, so long as you do honor to what happened there, the Bloody Rock Trail is really one of my favorite places, and it's a great place to visit the eel. And do take a moment to, in your own way, reflect on what happened there, and to ensure we never do anything like that again as a society. And I also love this, well, and that is part of the Snow Mountain Wilderness, but Snow Mountain itself, the top of the mountain, that's also wonderful. And Tuleyome is going to be having an outing there to the wonderful waterfall that's sadly not in the Eel River watershed. It's in the Stony Creek watershed, but still a wonderful, wonderful place to go. Flows year round, that waterfall. And I encourage you all to visit the Snow Mountain Wilderness. And then I mentioned the Yolobole Middle Eel Wilderness. That's a wonderful place too. And if you do anything at all, at least do the River Trail, which follows the North Fork, Middle Fork of the Eel River for many, many miles. That is an ancient trail, probably thousands of years old, that connected uh, the trails that are leg friendly on the Mendocino are the ones that are thousands of years old, and then the ones put in by people with livestock are the ones that go straight up and down because the animals are doing all the work. So, any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you,
All
everyone.
right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That was a great talk. I certainly learned quite a bit. Encourage folks to check out tuleyome.org to see our upcoming events, including hikes. Our next Nature New lecture is going to be on July 24th. That'll be about conservation programs at Conaway Ranch. And then our August lecture is going to be on wildlife tracking. Both of those should be pretty interesting, I think. All right. Thanks again, Ryan. And thanks to all of you for coming out on a Thursday evening. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.